What's the best example of FIU money you've seen? 1. Billionaire Howard Hughes reserved the top 2 floors of the Desert Inn in Las Vegas for 10 days. When his 10 days were up, the hotel asked him to check out. He wasn't ready to leave, so he bought the hotel and stayed there for 4 years. My favorite thing he did was buy a local television station so he could call them up at night and tell them to play whatever movie he felt like watching, like it was his own private Netflix decades before streaming existed. He made them play Ice Station Zebra over 100 times. 2. Ferruccio Lamborghini. Back in the days, he got rich building tractors, and he bought himself a Ferrari, because he's Italian, and it was the thing to do when Yo became successful. Unfortunately, sports car clutches back then were crap, and failed often. He went to Ferrari himself and said he could fix the problem, and was told to go back to his tractors because he knew nothing about high-performance cars. The wiki says he made cars to compete with Ferrari and the others, but in reality, he did it to spite Ferrari. Starting a car factory to spite someone, epic level of FU. 3. Kerry Packer. He frequented a particular casino often. One night after a good run he wanted to tip the dealer. She declined as per casino policy, so he asked to see her supervisor, who affirmed that it was against company policy for employees to accept tips from clientele. He demanded that they fire her or he'd never come back. They obliged. He then said, well, now she's not an employee, I can tip her, and gave her a ridiculous sum of money. The supervisor obliged. Kerry then said, hire her back again or I'll never come back to your casino. She got her job back and pocketed the tip. 4. I used to work with companies that build superyachts. Several times, the interior of a vessel has been finished in 500k plus worth of marble, after which the owner walks in, decides he doesn't like the color in hindsight, and requests it all be removed again. 5. The CEO of my company is actually a super solid guy. He hates one of our competitors so much he bought a billboard right outside the competitor's office and kept our ad up until they changed locations. 6. A guy I used to work for thought it would be funny to hire a limo to take a friend to lunch. The restaurant was literally next door to where they were. The limo company refused to rent by the hour and said he had to hire it for the entire day. The guy was angry, so just bought a limo. After lunch, he was still angry and decided to just buy a few more and start his own limo company. Month or two later he bought the company that refused him an hourly rental. 7. I'm an employment and contract attorney. In my younger days I was corp counsel for a large hospital. We were in the midst of a fundraising campaign and were a few million from our goal. Got a call from a wealthy, youngish guy, offered to cover the remainder plus 10% with 2 stipulations. He used to work at the hospital when he was younger and made it rich with a medical device company he started. So he wanted a voting member board seat, and he wanted to fire this vice president who was his supervisor when he worked there and had made his life miserable. He was the reason he quit and eventually into business for himself. Took it to the board and CEO. They agreed to the board seat. I couldn't advise they allow the firing for liability purposes. However, the CEO decided to reorganize certain departments and coincidentally this VP's position was eliminated. The new board member chaired the committee that made the call on the reorganization and informed the VP of the changes. That was the biggest FU, long-term grudge I ever saw. 8. My uncle bought a 900k small shop back in 2012. Cash, just so it wasn't torn down because he liked to go there as a kid. Literally just an abandoned small store in downtown Evansville. 9. I worked at a high-end eco resort some time ago. We spent weeks preparing for some guests who'd booked up half the resort for him and his family, doing a bunch of renovations and changes in the cabins and rooms because the guy was very picky, but he was spending a lot, so whatever. We even rebuilt the motor on another boat and outfitted it for down rigging because they needed 3 fishing boats. The guy shows up for his reservation, and the first thing he does is start cussing out and belittling the girl at the front desk. The owner walked in to see what his problem was and the guy proceeded to poop on the front desk girl to him. So the owner just said, I'm terribly sorry you feel that way. We will give you a full return on your deposit so you can find somewhere better to stay. The guy's face goes white, and he starts apologizing and pleading with him, but the owner doesn't care. The guy had to go out to the parking lot and explain to his entire family how his garbage temper effed up their 1-week vacation and they'd have to find somewhere else to stay. The owner couldn't give a F how much extra money he had spent. He wasn't taking that poop, and more importantly, he wasn't going to make the staff take that shift. He wasn't my favorite boss, but that is something I respect. 10. Notoriously Mark Cuban literally getting fined for saying F on a broadcast, finding out the fine goes to charity and saying it again.